You are listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network.
terminó هناك لشوارزنيجر.
Va a pegarle Ronaldinho Gaucho. Ya lo hace. Pierna derecha, directo al arco. ¡Golazo! 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 ¡Golazo!
This is Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio, your new live show about the beautiful game in all its glory, with Duane, Rollins and Kevin Laramee. MLS, EPL, La Liga, Champions League, all is fair game. Powered by the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us at sportspodcastingnetwork.com.
Welcome to Soccer Today. I'm Duane Rollins, coming at you live from the friendly city, from Belleville, Ontario. I'm here with my parents. If you hear a little echo in the background, that's why I'm in the lobby of their building. But we wanted to get a show out for you today because of the big news coming out of Wales. Kevin Laramee joins me as always. How you doing, Kevin?
I'm doing pretty good and, well, better than Bob Bradley. It took 11 games, Dwayne, for Swansea and its supporters to say no to the American experiment in front of the bench of Swansea.
Yeah, look, and it's a hard one to decompress. There was a lot of hope, of course, amongst American fans when Bob Bradley was hired, and for him to only be provided with 11 games and not be provided with a single transfer window does seem a little harsh, but there are, as always, two sides to this story, and we're going to try and explore both of them today. But before we do that, Kevin, let's just get your initial, when you saw the news, what was your initial reaction?
They gave in. They caved in. That was my reaction. Swansea owners, the decision makers in that part of Wales have decided to part ways with this coach because of the outcry of the supporters, because he was American, because of the singing of, oh, you're going to be sacked on Monday, sacked on Monday. Well, he was sacked. Might have been a Tuesday, but he was sacked.
Yeah, look, I mean, as I said, we will explore the other side of this, and I do think there is a point to explore there. But certainly there's an element of knee-jerkedness. I don't know if that's a word, Kevin, but I just made it one.
Well, it's one now. It isn't one now. And yeah, it's exactly what it is. It's we're going to keep him. We're going to keep him. We're going to keep him. All right, fine. You're loud enough. We're going to sack him.
Yeah, and look, that's the nature of the beast over there too. We do need to understand that. But this is their third manager in a calendar year, and that is that suggests that there's something more going on with this club and with the leadership at the top. And I think maybe that's quickly where we can go there. As much as you want to maybe justifiably suggest that Bob Bradley might have been in over his head, and again, like I said, we'll explore that in a minute. But even if that is the case, then what does that suggest? So go ahead.
Here's an analogy that me and my analogies, Dwayne. Even if you're thrusted in the deep end, you might be able to figure out how to swim if you're given enough time before you drown, of course. But he never had time. Like, they threw him into the deep end and they started pulling under the water. Like, give the guy a little chance. You mentioned no transfer window. A manager, part of his quote-unquote duties or his responsibilities is mold the club not just for the now, but for the middle term, for the long term. And that's what they were trying to establish, and he never had the chance to do that. In 11 games, you basically only have time to do one thing. Arrive, change a little bit of the training schedule, how the training sessions go, and move on from there. That's where he was in his project. Never had a fair shot, I believe.
You can move your formations and your tactics and things like that. But yeah, in terms of the true molding, like we talk about this with Pep all the time, and obviously Pep's going to get a lot longer than 1 year, and it's been an up and down fall and early winter for Manchester City, as we've talked about on the show before. But Pep's going to get the benefit of the doubt. Bob Bradley is not. Outside of the shores of North America, he is going to absolutely get the very opposite of the benefit of the doubt. And it seems like you said, to use your pool analogy, that when they threw him in the deep end, and maybe he was floundering a little bit, but rather than throwing him a life preserver, they actually turned a hose on him, it seems to me, right? So it made it
Add more water. Add more water.
Yeah, it seemed like it made it more difficult for him rather than easier rather than supportive. But again, to go back to the point I was making a moment ago, this does suggest, even if he was the wrong pick, then what does that say about the management above him? What does that say about the people that are making those choices for Swansea? And certainly this is a club that is, in trouble right now. And can they get anyone to come in, especially with a track record of 3 managers in a calendar year? Can they get anyone good that's willing to come in and take that chance? So there's always going to be someone that's going to jump at it because there are only so many Premier League management jobs in the world. But nonetheless, are they going to really get the cream of the crop when they have this kind of track record of, sort of pouring water on a situation rather than letting it play out? Or should they even, what kind of manager do they go for next? Do you look at someone that maybe has experience in the championship and getting teams promoted? Because let's face it, that's where they're headed right now for next season.
True. Or maybe someone with a new, not vision, but some new blood at the manager level. Ryan Giggs, Chris Coleman are the leading candidates as we speak, apparently, according to the BBC, for the Swansea job. Bob Bradley had to go, but blame for Swansea's plight lies in the boardroom. According to The Guardian, that seems to be the general attitude the day after in the UK papers right now is, it's a shame that he never got the fair shot, but he still had to go.
Yeah. And look, I spent some time this morning sort of exploring, like I said, the other side of this story, the Swansea side, some of their fans, to try and understand where they were coming from. And if you dig deep enough, you can find some people that are pretty even-tempered and reasonable about their position. And that's kind of what they were saying. They said Bob Bradley was a nice guy. Bob Bradley clearly had a huge work rate. Bob Bradley clearly was out there bleeding for the crest, figuratively. But they felt that maybe he just wasn't experienced enough, that he shouldn't have been given the chance. And then they all sort of said, any one of them would have taken the chance, but nonetheless, that doesn't mean that they should have been given it, right? And that's kind of the consensus that you're getting in Wales today for that firing. And
just one little theory that I have going right now. If you look at a coach, he's English first. Okay, the coach of Mark Bowen, I think, coach of Bournemouth.
Yeah.
If you look how he established his thoughts, because he plays differently, more Route 1 focus, but he established and proved himself earlier in the championship, getting his team promoted to the Premier League 2 years ago and doing well in the Premier League since then. He has proven himself on a lower level going into the Premier League. Bradley is afraid he's going to be the last American coach given the helms of a Premier League team. Maybe the way to get another American coach, or to get one in place without having the criticism behind him after the first turn, maybe the way to do it next time is you get one in the championship and he gets promoted with the club when the club gets promoted from the championship to Premier League. Maybe that's how you get your American coach to have credibility in Premier League.
No, and I think that you're onto something with that. Absolutely. I think, the Canadian that coached at the highest level is Paul Pescasolido in England. And of course, he's no longer right now coaching, but he did actually establish himself both as a player over there and then eventually managing at lower levels and having some degree of success there. So that if Pescasolido were to get another position, especially in the lower leagues over there, I don't think anyone would question it. And of course, he does an English heritage right now. He's married to Karen Brady, but nonetheless, he's Canadian, and they know that. So the point I'm making is, if you do establish yourself, if you do put the work in, so to speak, I think that they're going to be fair about it. But if you just parachuted in at the top, there's going to always be questions. And is it fair? Probably not.
I was going to say, Duane, it's not fair. Bob Bradley, we know he put the work in over the last 10, 15, 20 years as a coach, different places in the world, once a MLS Cup, one outside everywhere else, almost got Egypt qualified. He did a lot of work, quote unquote, in the world of football, but the perception of it is different when you're looking at the Premier League and the way it runs over there. It's a special world. It's a special place, and things do work in a different way. So it's interesting to me to see if there's going to be 4 managers that don't necessarily have the superstar aura like Conte coming into Premier League again and not necessarily have the Bob Bradley treatment.
Yeah, well, and Conte has the proper passport, right? I mean, he's an Italian, and they're going to understand that that's someone that can manage at this level. So the reality is, and I mean, you can complain about it all you want, but there is, you want to call it a prejudice, you want to call it maybe that they haven't earned it, Americans or Canadians or North Americans in general, but the reality is it's there, and you're going to have to overcome that. But so that does beg the question, as we said, is this going to be it for an American at the top level? And I think that it's pretty clear that the next one that does come in is going to have to come in with a track record that is stronger than Bradley's. Because as I said the other show, he managed in Ligue 2. He managed in the Norwegian League. That isn't a typical route to get to the Premier League. And a lot of people over here, I think, were willing to overlook that and probably value the Egypt experience a little higher than maybe they do in England. And of course, the American experience, which is not valued at all there. But they were willing to overlook that because they wanted him to succeed so badly. They wanted him to be successful. The next question, I guess, we could go with this is, where does Bob Bradley go from here? And obviously he's going to lick his wounds for a while.
Quickly, it's funny. The same day Bob Bradley fires, 2 days ago, it surfaces that Benito Floro has accepted. we talked about it last week, right? He accepted the manager job at Liga Deportiva Alajuelense, Deportivo Alajuelense, the club that the Impact beat in the semifinals of the CONCACAF Champions League last year, where Johan Venegas, 2 years ago, where Johan Venegas came from. Jonathan McDonald, probably one of the most fun to watch Costa Rican player. Yes, his name is Jonathan McDonald, but he's Costa Rican. Benito Floro, pictures are surfaced. He's there. It's true. It's real. And where is Bob Bradley going to fit that? Is Canada back being an option? Is other spot, maybe an MLS return? There's big clubs, LAFC, who knows? Maybe, those type of rumors are going to start to surface now.
Yeah, well, exactly. Real quickly on the other Wednesday thing, I'm waiting to see Kyle Becker signing down there in the days ahead.
I would not even be surprised. It's possible. It happens.
And Samuel Piet as well.
Well, Samuel Piet is still with Deportivo Coruña, I think, the B1. Yeah, the B1. But if you go back to 2 weeks ago, go to Samuel Piet's Twitter. He actually made a great save. He was backing his goalkeeper, and goalkeeper was out of position, so he was running back and made a great save. If you want to see Samuel Piet play a nice defensive play a few weeks ago with Deportivo Coruña.
All right, fair enough, and good for Samuel Piet. But back to Bob Bradley. Yeah, no, the first thing that I thought of instantly, I asked you what I thought you thought of. It was like, okay, well, Canada's back on the table now because he's had his shot there. And maybe it's true that Bob Bradley might be a manager that is best suited for the international game. This is something to consider as well.
Norway,
did have a lot of success in Egypt.
I probably jumped the gun there, Duane. Sorry, but some Norwegian team that Bradley coach, I think it's Stalbeck, are actually putting pressure on the Norwegian Football Association to consider Bradley as the new coach of Norway in the international game.
Yeah, and look, and that'd be a good position for him. He knows the Norwegian culture, obviously, having spent some time there. But his grandkids live in Toronto, and that's where Floro based the national team program out of. So there's no reason why he wouldn't be able to put well, maybe they might live in Rome soon. There's that rumor we haven't touched on in a while. But nonetheless, I think that Michael's back for another kick at the can because they came, 1 inch of Stephen Fry's fingers from an MLS Cup. So they're going to try and fix that. So I think that Bob Bradley's grandkids are going to live in Toronto for at least another year. And there is some logic there. Look, I think he's a pretty good international manager. I think he's an international manager that could probably really help the Canadian program, especially just on the technical level. He has managed in the Premier League, albeit for 11 games, but no other Canadian has. So you could do a hell of a lot worse, as we talked about at the time of Floro's departure.
So are you saying the hashtag Bradley for Canada is back? It's back on the table? It's back being a possibility? Hashtag Bradley for Canada.
We could do worse. We could do a lot worse. We probably will do worse. So that's just something to say that I do think, and I've said this a few times now, that I do believe that an American is the best approach to hire next. I know there's some Canadians here that won't like that opinion, but I think just in terms of understanding CONCACAF, while also understanding the culture of this country and being able to relate to the culture of this country is something that would be quite valuable. And I think an American coach is uniquely positioned to can do something like that. I mean, Jesse Marsh has sort of hinted that he wouldn't mind the job too at one point. So
yeah, but that was back in the days of the Impact and back in the days of Jesse Marsh finishing this job and looking at the landscape and not seeing an opportunity until the Red Bulls came up.
Exactly. So he's probably pretty busy with them right now. But nonetheless, I think that suggests to me that there would be people that are interested in the position in the United States of America. So there's always an option there. Busy in the hallway here if you hear background noise. But at any rate,
life moves on, Duane. Even if there's soccer today, life still moves on, I guess.
Yes, there's a lot of folks are bringing their Christmas, their post-Christmas shopping back into the apartment building here.
Well, let's take a quick break and come back and talk about the rest of the Premier League and talk about Boxing Day and the day after.
Sure.
You are listening to Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio. Visit sportspodcastingnetwork.com for more.
I've been relegated to the mailroom now, Kevin.
Hey, who said there wasn't promotion relegation? Just this time it's in Belleville and it's about lobbies.
Yes, there you go. I'm now in the mailroom where Coney Dairy Delivery from Reed's Dairy will now deliver milk to your door. That's 1953 right now. So there you go.
Hey, what's old is new again.
There you go. Exactly.
Speaking of old is new, Sam Allardyce is still unbeaten in Crystal Palace management. His last 2 gigs, as of right now, he's efficient and unbeaten. 100%, sorry, efficiency with England, and now undefeated as Crystal Palace manager.
Picking fights with mascots too. That was a bizarre little story for Big Sam there. Angry that the mascot was faking a dive or pretending to dive because he thought that I forget what player it was, but one of the Palace players, in his opinion, in the mascot's opinion, dove.
Yeah, he's gonna talk about it with the FA.
Yeah, I know. What are you going to do? Sanction the mascot for 3-game suspension for the mascot for simulation? Oh, Big Sam, Big Sam. He's a parody of himself sometimes, but yes, he has the ability to, and I'll tell you what, had the Swansea position come down the pipe a few days before Big Sam had been hired away, I suspected that might be the direction they go.
Yeah.
Say what you want about him, he does have an ability to manage that tier of English team to a certain level of performance, which is, there's a lot of fear in Swansea's boards that Pardew is going to be the next one in there. Another guy that seems to do okay for a few months and then doesn't again. But
yep.
Well, that's one thing I thought I had on the agenda today is that there's a feeling in England. There's an old adage that they say that if you're bottom of the table on Boxing Day, that you're probably going down. And if you're top of the table on Boxing Day, you're probably going to win. So I asked you, and I'll ask you again right now, do you think both of those things are going to happen this year? And if not, which one is less likely in your opinion?
The more likely for me right now is Chelsea winning with 6 points clear, top of the table. But if you go to the bottom, 3 teams that we're not expecting to be there at the beginning of the season: Sunderland, Swansea, and Hull. 3 teams that are struggling with either boardroom difficulties right now. For Hull City, is it going to be sold? Is it going to get that influx of money? A lot of players are wondering, are we going to have a job even if we stay here in the Premier League next year? That's going on. Swansea City with the Bradley situation and the boardroom decisions that haven't come through in 2016. And Sunderland, will it be the year the Black Cats and Defoe don't stay up? David Moyes looking like he was with Manchester United just a few years ago. It's not looking well. And Crystal Palace cleared off the third, but just 2 points in front of Sunderland in the 3 spots for relegation. So maybe it's going to move a little bit because of the 3 teams themselves, but I think 2 of those 3 are going down.
Yeah, and usually that's the case. And I would have to peg Swansea as pretty likely at this point, as we just talked about at extent, a lot in the last block. It doesn't seem very pretty there. And, a manager can't parachute in and change things overnight. Maybe they can turn around, and certainly you look at their defensive record under Bradley, which is probably what ultimately killed him. They were leaking goals pretty bad. They could probably bring someone in that can grind out a few 0-0s and 1-0 wins, which is what you need to do to stay up. But by and large, I think the turmoil there, I think there's a lot of players that are looking to jump ship. that it's going to be very difficult for Swansea to overturn it. In terms of Hull, I watched them, of course, on Boxing Day. It's the feature match that I was paying attention to.
They're not bad. Like, they're not 20th in the table bad at all.
No, precisely. And look, they lost 3-0 to City, but it wasn't a 3-0 game. It was a game that they battled hard for. I forget when the first goal went in, but it was close to 60 minutes.
It was they scored 3 times in the last 18 minutes, so it was around the 72nd minute.
Yeah. So, and like I said, and look, there was times watching that game where as a City supporter, it seemed like maybe it wasn't going to come and Hull was going to grind it out. Now I'm looking through it through blue eyes, so I'm seeing the narrative of, City's unable to break a team down. But now that they got the win, I can take a step back and go, you know what? Hull played very well and played very diligently and hard for that, which they're in a hole. But I do think that if they play like that against mid to lower table teams the rest of the way, that they certainly might not, David Silver is not going to be there to open things up, right? Raheem Sterling's not going to have that speed and explosiveness to earn a penalty against him. So if they do that against, your Crystal Palaces out there, your Swanseas, they might be able to get enough to just pick themselves out of that spot. So I would give them a chance. And as far as Sunderland goes, as I've called them a few times already in this show, they are the cockroach in the Premier League right now. Nuclear winter, they will survive it, it seems. So I'm pegging them for 17th right now as we speak, because they just always finish 17th, and they're destined to finish 17th until the end of time.
Yeah, which means that Crystal might continue to move up a little bit, maybe up to 14th. Borough might go down, not necessarily the championship, but down to the table, which brings us to Leicester, 16th. Everton, big win for them against Leicester. On the road, it was the Jamie Vardy mask day at the Stadium of Light, and it was quite bizarre to see the sight of Jamie Vardy wearing a mask of his own face. Yeah, it was kind of weird. It was protest because of his ban, but the FA overruled the complaint and did not even pay attention to it. Anyways, he was banned, and Leicester lost. Did not play well at all. What does it say about Leicester? Is the Europe factor? Is the Europe basket that they put all their eggs in, is it going to be their downfall this year?
Sorry, you broke up a little bit there, but the Leicester factor, it certainly has been a very difficult season for them so far. And the last team, of course, to go down after winning the title was in the 70s, and I'm not going to tell you who it was. You can figure out that yourself just based on the fact that I'm not going to tell you.
It was City.
Yeah. It was the 70s. It's before I was paying attention, so I'm okay there. And they beat United to relegate them the season prior, so that was something. Anyway, we're good in ancient history now.
Back to Leicester.
Dennis Law, you can see the back heel, and he didn't celebrate because he is a United legend. Look, I don't think Leicester is going to go down, but yes, I do think that their European adventures are going to cause them a challenge. But at the same time, if you're a club like that, you may not get back anytime soon, so you might as well enjoy them while you can. They're just Vardy's the difference this year, though, right? Like, I mean, they are playing a very similar style. They still can be effective, but last year they had Jamie Vardy party. They had him playing out of his head, scoring at will, and it just being one of those guys that got in a roll. I mean, the old adage that form is fallacy sometimes is challenged when you see stuff like that play out over the course of a year. But they're just not getting it this year. And then the 4-game ban, which in my opinion was deserved. I know people will disagree and think that the game's gone soft, but the way that the game is called nowadays, I think that was clearly a red card. It's a continued challenge for them. And if they don't find a way to sort of get some of that magic back, they're not going to be anywhere near the European spots. But I don't think there's any chance that they go down.
No, exactly. But it is cutting it quite close right now. 17 points. Sunderland in 18th spot right now with 14. So talking about just 3 points clear of relegation zone as we speak. So for Leicester, their margin of error is inexistent right now.
Yeah, and look, and I see that team, and look, I'm probably biased because I watched them hand City their ass a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, when Mahrez is on too, it makes a big difference. He's been struggling in the league lately. Only 3 goals this season compared to his PFA Player of the Year award-winning season last year.
Yeah, well, and what happened to that? What did I just say about Vardy and who got the hat trick in that game, right? So if you got your main guy scoring, then you're going to be successful. I mean, the game's pretty simple sometimes. Put the ball in the net, and if you're doing that, you're going to win. But they can't consistently do it.
You're right. It is pretty simple in theory. Just take that ball, You see how small it is? Just put it
It's
in
a
the
big net,
big
too, man.
net.
It's a very big net.
It's a big net. Just hit it in there. It's not as easy in real life, though.
No, I played the game, so I know. I played the game poorly, but anyway.
We never said we were good. We're just good talking about it. There's a difference.
Yeah. Look, we talked a lot about the bottom. I guess we should focus a bit on the top, although I feel that we've sort of spoke about that already in the month leading up to this and talked about how Chelsea right now, they look pretty unstoppable. And it is hard to envision a scenario in which they lose the 2 to 3 games that they need to lose for someone to rein them in at this point.
Yeah.
Obviously, the head-to-heads are going to be what matters. It's what it's going to take. Do you think Chelsea can lose 3 games? And do you think one of those teams chasing, be it Liverpool, be it Arsenal, be it City, I think United's probably out of touch, so we'll leave them out of the equation. If one of those teams can do something like Liverpool did in 2014 and run it,
it'll be close. But the stat that I want to bring right now, yes, Chelsea has 46 points, Liverpool 40, and City 39. That's your top 3. Let's go with top 4. Arsenal 37. But the stat that is interesting to me is not the goals for, but it's the goals against. Only 11 goals against Chelsea this season in the league for a differential of plus 27. Best in the league. 3 better than Liverpool. Around 8 more than City. So you're talking about the first tiebreaker goes for Chelsea. So not only did they have 6 points ahead, but they have as well the first tiebreaker. That's how good defensively they have been playing in their 3-5-2 since Conte made the transition 4 games in.
Well, and Conte is an Italian guy. That's not gonna let up. That's their bread and butter, right? They know how to coach defensively, and they know how to maintain that kind of record. So that's again why it's difficult to see them slipping up. And I think by slipping up, I mean not like kind of a can't score 0-0 draw, which will probably happen down the line, but we're talking about losses. And if you're not allowing that many goals, it's hard to imagine how you're going to lose 3 times to allow the opportunity for one of those clubs that we mentioned to run the table, which is what it would require at this point, probably for them to rein in. I mean, I doubt that those clubs have given up, but at the same time, probably in the back rooms, they are focused a little bit more on top 3 and top 4 than they are necessarily the title at this point. That said, injuries can happen. Costa could go down. Things like that could occur that really cause a problem, and the things could change pretty quickly. I mentioned the Liverpool 2014 season, which we all remember how it ended, but what maybe we forget is the fact that they won some outrageous amount of games in a row. I think it was 12 or 13 games in a row to draw control of that race before Steven Gerrard fell on his and ended it all. So, it's Steve Gerrard. He fell on it anyway.
But you mentioned Liverpool. I do believe Liverpool, City are probably the only 2 teams that could potentially give a challenge for Chelsea for the title, and that if they win the head-to-head, the second head-to-head will be tremendously important for Chelsea and Liverpool, which Liverpool right now might be the second favorite for the league or the runner-up favorite for the league, and City, where they are just a point behind Liverpool, it's close as well. Liverpool have shown that they can play with the big boys, but they've shown that they lead goals against the small ones too. So that could be their downfall against the Chelsea. That head-to-head might give us the league winner this season.
Yeah, well, and of course Liverpool plays City on New Year's Eve, so that is going to be close to a must-win for both of those clubs. I don't think a draw is going to do any of them any favors, so that should be an entertaining game, both capable of playing a pretty attractive football. Liverpool likes to get out on the front foot, likes to sort of, it plays a style that City struggles with sometimes too. So that should be a pretty entertaining contest to watch this weekend, and by far the game for battle for second place. Whoever wins it is going to either pull ahead by at least a game or overtake. So that's one of those teams needs to win that. I think if there is to be any hope of a race coming on. And I'll tell you right now, as a City guy, City loses that game against Liverpool, it's done. It's done for the title. It is. It's too far at that point.
Even a draw would hurt both teams more than anything else, because Chelsea's probably going to win. So you have that, because Costa's going to be back. Pedro's going to be suspended, I think, for accumulation, but Costa's back. So, and even then, We all saw what Azad could do as a false nine, so there's no problem there.
Yeah, no, it's you never know when things can change, but certainly it does not look likely that Chelsea is going to slip up in a major way right now, and particularly this weekend. Kevin, at that note, this was a very European-centric show. That's kind of, I think, going to be the case, maybe not more often than not, but more often, certainly in the days ahead. I am traveling tomorrow. I'm not entirely sure on my schedule, but Friday I am back and ready to go back to Get Soccer Today 5 times a week starting next Monday. Yes. Kevin, any final parting thoughts on the Christmas season or what have you?
Well, we'll keep it an eye. Minnesota signed a Costa Rican defender over the last few hours, so we'll talk about this more on the next edition of Soccer Today. But until then, have a great holidays and have a great soccer.